Once you've gotten all of this glued together, you're going to work on laying out your angle piece, which is going to go towards our front. To do that, you're going to need the piece E's, and we're going to mark them individually for cutting, because we need to cut an angle onto the top and bottom of them in order to be able to glue them in. So I'm going to take my masking tape off, once again making sure it gets in the trash. So I'm going to take it off the top, take it off the bottom. Now it doesn't matter which one you use. You can choose whether you want the smooth or the rough side facing out. On mine, I'm going to go ahead and use the rough side facing out. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to get them ready to fit inside here. And to do this, what we're going to do, and this sometimes may need to have your partner's help, but I want this top piece to simply fit right up in here. So this point is going right underneath that edge. I'm then going to go ahead and tilt this down so this bottom edge is just right there on the corner. So I'm just going to get two angles, and once again, you may need your square or your ruler for this. You're also going to need a pen or pencil, but I'm going to hold that in place, and like I said, you can always have your partner help you mark it. But I'm going to draw a line across the back, and I'm going to draw a line across the bottom. And when I'm done, I should have two lines marked. So I'm going to end up cutting this piece off, and I'm going to cut this piece off. And to do that, I'm going to use the bandsaw, and when I'm done cutting, I'm going to use that pattern to lay out the second one. But I want to make sure this pattern fits nicely first, then I will use that for cutting out the second. So once you have this marked, you're going to go cut this one, come back, mark your second one, and we'll cut the other one. Now once again, when I go to cut, just like before, I'm going to make sure the other vents are not open. If I don't need them, right, I go down the line, shutting the vents. I make sure that I have my safety glasses on before I come to the back. And I'm going to make sure my vent is open. And then I'm going to go ahead, make sure this vent back here is open. And I'm going to go ahead and cut my pieces on the bandsaw. So I go ahead, I make sure I turn on the dust collector. When I go to cut my piece, I'm going to be cutting that angle, so I'm going to be pushing straight in, cutting down the line, trying my best to leave that line on. I'm going to turn my bandsaw on. I'm going to go ahead with one hand. I'm just going to cut as best I can, straight down that line, leaving it on. When I get through, I turn it off, wait for it to come to a complete stop. I can use the push rod, or I can use my piece, and I'm going to push that piece out and away, and then I'm going to throw that scrap away. But you'll notice I've left my line on. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. Notice my hand's kind of behind the bandsaw, and I'm going to pull through, cutting that piece off. So I come in, cut down straight to my line, then I turn that off, waiting for it to come to a complete stop. Push those scraps out and away. Throw my scraps away. If I'm the last one, turn the dust collector off. Take the dustpan, sweep up my mess, throw it in the trash can, hang my dustpan back up. I'm now going to use this piece as a pattern for the other piece after I check it. Now that I have it cut, you may want to make a mark just saying that this is the top, this is the bottom, right? So you can do a D or so you could do a T for the top, a B for the bottom, or you could write part of it or all of it out. But that way you know which side is going to end up getting glued on. It's going to sit pretty flush to that piece if we did it correctly. The other thing you're going to notice is we still have a line drawn on both the top and the bottom. We're going to sand down to that, but we need to make sure we have a line so we know where we're sanding down to. Once we know that it looks like it's a pretty good fit, we're going to go ahead and we're going to lay that pattern out by simply laying it on top of the other piece. And so if you'll notice, my smooth side's the out. So I'm going to make sure my smooth side is the outside of that side. I'm going to line my piece up right up with the edge. And I'm going to draw my line on once again so I can repeat my cut. And if you want, once again, you could mark right now the T for the top, B for the bottom. But so I have a nice dark line once again, and I'm going to cut to this side of the line, right? So I can always make a little X. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to repeat my cut that I just did. So once again, to make my second cuts, I'm going to make sure all the vents are open or closed, depending on who's cutting, right? I'm going to go ahead and turn on the dust collector. Once again, I'm going to keep my hands off to the side. I'm going to cut straight down that line. That line's just going to go right towards the bandsaw blade. I keep my hands off to the side. I cut towards the X. And I'm just going to leave that line on, cutting straight back down the line. Once again, I turn it off, wait for it to come to a complete stop. Move my piece out and away. Those just simply go in the trash. Turn around and do the same on the other side. I then turn it off. Wait for it to come to a complete stop. Move that piece out and away from the orange lines. Then I take it, I throw that in the trash. Once again, I take my dustpan, clean up my mess, throw my scraps in the dust in the trash can, come back, hang my dustpan up. If no one else is using the bandsaws, I turn the dust collector off. Now I should have two pieces that are pretty close to being even because I've used the patterns to cut. If for some reason you've cut either of these lines off, you will go back and redraw them so you know where you're sanding down to. You can always check with your instructor if you need help with that. But if you have both your lines left on, your next step is going to be to go over to the electric sander. Once again, you're going to use the electric sander that is closest to the dust collection system if nobody else is sanding. Once again, all the other vents should be closed. Just the first one should be open. You're going to go ahead, turn on the dust collector. When you come over to the electric sander, if the miter gauge is on, you do not need this. You'll simply go ahead, hang it back up on the wall so it's up and out of the way. You're going to simply sand down to your line. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn on vacuum number 1, turn the dust collector on. I'm going to keep it moving and I'm going to very quickly even out that line. I'm then going to do the same to the other side. Take the next piece, going down to the line. Turn it off. Turn it off. If nobody else is sanding, turn off the dust collector. Come over to the vacuum. Use the vacuum. Clean up your mess. You now have 2 pieces cut, sanded, and ready to glue in. Now that you have your pieces cut and sanded, they're going to be ready to glue in. Once again, you're going to want to make sure you have your online stopwatch all ready to go and that you've made a timer for 5 minutes. We're going to be putting glue on the top section and then right here where it connects, and we're going to hold like such for 5 minutes. Now, so you know where the glue needs to go on the bottom. Once again, you can make a pencil line on that back side. This side is where you're going to put the glue, so you really don't need to, but you can make an X there if you want. You're going to use your glue bottle. Once again, you're going to put a light coat of glue on. You got your X marked, so you put a light coat of glue there. You're then going to make sure you got a couple paper towels for it to sit on. You're going to make sure you're holding up against the side and flush. If you get some glue on there, you can take your paper towel, wipe it up. But you're going to push against here and against here. So you're going to take one hand and clamp here, one hand and clamp here. We then will hold for 5 minutes. So we'll start our timer. And we'll simply hold, checking to make sure you're even. Just push against the B piece and against the C piece, and you're just going to hold for 5 minutes. So I'm going to clear my timer. I'm going to take a clamp. I'm going to put it, actually I'm going to put this one, I'm going to take a clamp. I'm going to put it across, making sure I'm not pushing the catapult crooked. I'm going to clamp in the bottom. I'm then going to take a clamp and I'm going to clamp across the top just enough to hold that in place. I'm then going to turn my catapult. Once again, it might stick to your paper. And I'm going to work on gluing the other one, making sure I have it all correctly laid out, onto the edge and onto the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the other side on. So once again, I'm going to take my pencil and make a line so I know where I need to put glue. All right, I'm going to put glue right on that side and right on that side. So I put a thin bead of glue. Once again, if you'd happen to get too much, you're going to go ahead. All right, so I got it on the X, got it on the X. If you happen to get a little too much, use a paper towel to wipe it up. But I'm going to go ahead and put it right up against the piece B and right on the ground at the same time. You may have to kind of move your clamp a little bit if you need to, but I'm going to hold down at the bottom, making sure I'm not pushing up. And then I'm going to hold at the top. Once again, I would start my timer, and I'm going to hold that piece for 5 minutes. Now once again, as you've been holding for 5 minutes by hand on this side and the other side is being clamped, the timer is going to reach 0. When it does, you can let go. So I go ahead and let go of this side. I'm now going to clamp this other one down, and I'm going to clamp this top. So I'm going to take the bottom clamp off. I'm going to flip it around 180 degrees, tighten it up on the bottom piece. I'm then going to take the top clamp off, put it on the top piece on this side, I'm then going to go ahead and start my timer, and I'm going to let these clamp for 5 minutes. Once your timer hits 0, you'll go ahead and unclamp your catapults. You can clear your timer. You'll then unclamp your catapult. So after the clamps are off, the next video is going to show you how to find the center for creating your mortise and tenon joints for the 2 ends, the 2 sides, and the 2 angle pieces. Once you have that done, the video will also show you how to drill those and put the plugs in, but that will be the next